Hello and welcome to TelecomTV. I'm Martin Warwick. We're here at the TM Forum's Digital Transformation World, and I'm talking with Boris Maurer of Accenture. Boris Maurer, thanks for talking to us. Now look, given that telcos and CSPs are, by their very nature, highly structured, regulated and standards-based entities, the presentation you've just given, which you called Trash the Rulebook, is provocative, certainly, and it's potentially contentious. What's happening in the market that's making you such an iconoclast?
So if you look at Europe first and then the rest of the world, because in Europe you see it most strongly. If you look at the last 10 years, the profitability of the industry has halved. So which used to be an industry creating more than 50 billion of EBIT every year in Europe is now creating 25 billion of EBIT every year. So that is a fundamental change. It's not that strong in the US and other parts of the world, but still the industry is stagnating and going down. At the same time, the new value that is created, by the way, in the same regulated environment, because the over-the-top player in principle submit themselves under the same regulation, they take the big share of the new value that is created. So if telcos want to stay in the regulated and stiff part of the business, there's no way than just run for cost run down, and they will probably at one point in time give up on it and lose it. So there is no way rather than to think about how this other value actually got created and gets created every day, and think about what their role is with the consumer. How do they create value with the end consumer? And that is where we think this is a fundamental change from where telcos are coming from, and therefore they need to trash the rulebook, unlearn what they learned, learn something different from what made them successful over the last 20 years, and think about how they can be more relevant to their consumers and play an essential part in the digital life of their consumers.
Okay, Boris, given what you've just said, can you explain how CSPs can actually get through this period of continual and ongoing disruption and come out the other end of it, not just intact, but as a winner?
So I think that telcos have all the opportunity to win. They are still trusted partners of their consumers and the business that they are serving. Still today, if you go to a B2B company, they probably want to be served in a large part of the portfolio that they're taking in communications and IT by their telco. They actually trust those guys. And yes, we complain about the service of our telcos, but still, somehow they serve us well. It's working, it's reliable, it's 7 digits reliable. And so it's a good starting point. The processes that they have don't lend to the future, so they need to change the process that they're having. And many telcos are actually already on the way. Every telco does BSS transformation. Every telco knows that to be successful in BSS transformation, they need to decouple the customer experience from the legacy. If they just now go one step further and say, now we have a platform, the decoupling platform, which allows us to create a different experience. If we now basically open that also up for third parties, bring them in and think about how you can support new transaction-based business models, that is exactly what you need as a capability to do the next step. Then you need to start learning from the data that is coming in and improve the service. That is the first part that they need to do. The same thing they need to do on the network side. While today they basically lose their shirt because they're driven into fiber built out, mostly by governments, probably there is better guys who can build physical infrastructure in the future because it's just physical infrastructure. But what telcos need to do is actually that they look at the network in a different way. The network is now enabling local services. It's connectivity to the central cloud, but probably in a few years' time, 70 to 80% of all the payload that needs to be transported and managed and analyzed will be analyzed locally in hybrid cloud structures and on the edge. And who is there already? It's telcos. So think about their network differently. Think about it as the capability to provide connectivity and compute on the edge, in the proximity of their customers, bringing down latency and improve all the time the performance. So this is actually the way on the network side. So you have basically those two layers which will be in software entirely in the future. And if telcos manage that, they basically will get out of this game as trusted security players, proximity players, close to their customers, creating value and be stronger than before.
And how can CSPs prepare to monetize the connected ecosystem?
So monetization of the connected ecosystem is a real challenge for telcos. They are used to get service revenues from their customers. You enter into a direct relationship, you get paid for the service that you provide. That is going to fundamentally change. A lot of the revenues that you will generate in the future will be transaction-based, and telcos won't be the end-to-end provider of the service, but the enabler of services that lead to transaction revenues. That is something that mentally need to be understood by telco leaders, because the numbers that you get out of a single transaction are so small compared to the billions of revenues that the sector is generating. But that is actually what they need to learn. And we see some first operators that actually got to a sizable business already by transaction-based revenues. And this is the path to go, and it will go further into the future.
Finally, Boris, what part will 5G play in this developing scenario?
So 5G is actually not only what we're talking about, infrastructure again of frequency. It's a software capability on the network. It's the ability to slice and to manage networks differently. You will apply that actually not only to 5G frequency and networks, you will apply it across the board to networks. So the future and 5G, first of all, is that you are physical infrastructure independent and that you provide quality of service. That's number one. Number two, more specifically on how people talk about 5G, it's a B2B opportunity. And the B2B opportunity is what I said earlier, is the opportunity to provide actually a complementary game to the globally web-scale cloud providers to be close to the customer and provide compute and connectivity locally with the right security and quality of service. And then in the future, also consumer services will emerge, but the core thing is on the B2B side from our point of view.
Boris Maurer, thank you very much.
Thank you very much for having me.